remember and worship the personality of Godhead, who's the protector of the devotees. Now last week we focused almost completely on the 8 stages of attaining pure love of God. And the first one is Shraddha, appreciation, initial phase that these devotees, this Hare Krishna seems to be very nice. They seem to be nice people. I think I want to go back and talk to them some more and associate with them. I think I may make spiritual advancement if I do that. And they were very nice to me, and they seemed to be well organized, and they seemed to be knowledgeable. So let me go back and find out more. So that's called initial Shraddha, this appreciation of faith. It's not strong faith, but it's initial appreciation because one was treated very nicely. They had a nice greeting, they had nice prasadam, there was nice discussion, everyone was kind and gentle and seemed to be knowledgeable about spiritual things, and it was also fun. There was kirtan and there was nice discussion. So let me go back again. So then one progresses to sadhu sangha. I want to associate regularly with these people because not only they're nice, not only they're giving me good information, they're giving nice prasadam, but I'm learning things and I'm getting answers to many questions I had. I never got the answers sufficiently before. And I'm learning new things that I never knew before. And then in the association of devotees, one is brought to realize the importance of spiritual initiation, bhajana kriya. So one accepts Shiksha and Diksha gurus, and under their tutelage and supervision, the neophyte starts clearing away all bad habits and rising up from the mode of ignorance to the mode of passion and then to the mode of goodness, and sustains one's standing in the mode of goodness. And therefore the next stage is anavrita vritti, clearing away of all bad habits and becoming stable in the mode of goodness. And then after that, by staying like that for a considerable time, one develops nishtha, or firm faith. In other words, I'm going to do this the rest of my life. I know Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I don't have any doubts. I know Prabhupada is a pure devotee. I know ISKCON is a sincere and serious spiritual movement. And my guru and my gurus are all genuine people. I'm staying. I'm going to do this. And I'm going to increase my service and so forth. But now one has strong faith, nishtha. And then from nishtha, because of regulated life and following and hearing and listening to classes, one develops ruchi, a genuine taste for waking up early, chanting one's rounds early, attending Mangalarati, listening to the classes, and having darshan of the deities, and Guru Puja, and Tulsi Puja. In other words, this becomes a lifestyle at that point. And because this is what gives someone pleasure. One no longer has pleasure going to parties with mundane people, and one doesn't feel any pleasure going to places where it's only mundane activity, no spiritual activity. One doesn't feel, oh, the world is passing by me because I'm in the temple all the time doing service. I'm not experiencing the world. No. And one also gets a taste for going on Sankirtan, and it's more fun going on Sankirtan than doing the Bhangra in Bellevue or someplace, you know. So at that point they have this taste for these spiritual activities, and it's a real taste, and they lost their taste for the other activities. And then after that, comes anashaktis, real strong attachment to Krishna consciousness. Very, very strong attachment to it. One cannot live without it, even for 1 minute. And then from that comes bhava, or the beginning of ecstatic life. When you start chanting, every time you chant Hare Krishna, you actually feel the presence of Krishna. And you actually have the experience that Krishna is dancing on your tongue. And it's wonderful. I mean, in other words, you don't want to stop chanting. And you can't get the mantra out of your mind at all. It's always going. Even in your sleep, you're hearing the mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And that progresses, and you attain the real goal of life, prema, or pure love of Krishna, where you can't think of anything else, do anything else except serve Krishna, surrender completely to Krishna. So, and that was explained last week in detail, even in more detail than what I explained. So now we're going to go over the verses from which that was derived. So the first one is verse 14, and Prabhupada says, the translation, therefore with one pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who's the protector of the devotee. So what does that mean, one pointed attention? It means that you're completely focused, very focused. Just like one time, Arjuna and Duryodhana were being taught by their guru, Dronacharya, archery, and the goal was to hit the eye of a bird that was in a tree 100 or 200 feet away. So first Duryodhana came up, and Dronacharya said, "What do you see?" He said, "I see the forest." He said, "Okay, now what do you see?" He said, "I see the tree." He said, "Now what do you see?" He said, "I see the bird." He said, "Now what do you see?" "I see the branch on which the bird is sitting." He said, "Okay, sit down. You're a nonsense." He had to sit down. So then Arjuna came up. He said, "What do you see?" He said, "I see the forest." He said, "Now what do you see?" "I see the tree in which the bird is sitting on a branch." He said, "What do you see?" "I see the branch and the bird." He said, "Now what do you see?" He said, "I see the bird." He said, "Now what do you see?" "I can actually see the eye of the bird." He said, "Shoot." Arjuna shot the arrow, hit the bird right in the eye. That's the difference between someone who's focused and someone who has not really decided to be completely focused on Krishna consciousness. So Arjuna hit the bird in the eye, and Duryodhana had to sit down in shame. Okay? So until we develop that sharp focus in our life, on what? One pointed attention to constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who's the protector of the devotees. And Prabhupada says, if realization of the absolute truth is the ultimate aim of life, it must be carried out at all means. In other words, if that's your actual goal in life, then you have to be serious about it at all times. And so it doesn't matter if you are a Sudra or if you are a worker, or if you're a Vaishya, a businessman, or a farmer, or if you are a Kshatriya, or if you are a Brahmana. It doesn't matter. Everyone should be focused on glorifying, hearing, remembering, and worshiping as your culture, as your general occupations that you're concerned with. Because without this conviction that this is my culture, this is the way I get my happiness in life, right? One cannot exist in spiritual consciousness. So the activities involve these different principles: glorifying the Lord, hearing about the Lord, remembering the Lord, worshiping the Lord. And even whatever you do in life, it's all about hearing and repeating or glorifying. Just like you hear about, let's say, some politician. By the way, Modi won the election, so everyone's talking about Modi now, right? And then you'd say, oh, it's so good he won, thank God, otherwise the Muslims and the Congress people would have taken over again and it would be a mess. And so people are going to be talking about Modi for a long time now, right? Especially now that he just won the election. So this is normal. You turn on the radio or the television in India, Modi, 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 Modi. They're all talking about Modi. Modi did this, Modi did that. Before the election, they were saying, Modi, Modi, Modi. Modi didn't do this, Modi didn't do that, right? And people are talking about Modi, right? So Prabhupada says that in modern society, all activities are more or less dependent on hearing and glorifying, you see. So any person, regardless of the social status, can become a well-known person or personality in human society in a short time if simply they are truly or falsely spoken about in the daily newspapers. Anybody, even the most insignificant idiot, can become a famous person because every day they're talking about him. I remember years ago when I was living in Berkeley, California, and every once in a while I would look at the San Francisco newspapers. Every day, Monday to Sunday, there was an article about homosexuality. Every day. And I was like perplexed. Why do they have all this? Because they wanted to make it mainstream. And it became mainstream. And even now, all the time there's articles about homosexuality and gay marriage and transgender and LGBTQ, whatever. And they made it famous by writing about it every day. And they don't let up. So that's why Prabhupada says that even if anyone, regardless of what their social status is, they can be the lowest class person in the world. They can be a criminal. They can be a criminal. But because they write about them all the time, that person becomes famous. And all activities, again, Prabhupada says, based on hearing and glorifying. Hearing and glorifying. So, the actual object, however, of glorification is the Supreme Personality Godhead, Krishna. He's created everything, manifest and unmanifest. So, that's why it says Janmadasiyata Nivyaditaratas Charte Svavigya Surat. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything is coming from Him. Everything is controlled by Him. Everything will return to Him. So this tendency of hearing and glorifying should be used uniquely for Krishna. Then we're not wasting our time, we're not wasting our breath. So then the next verse, 15, Yad anudasina yukta karma granti nibandhanam chindanti kuvidastasya kuna kuryat kataratim. So this verse says, with sword in hand, intelligent man cuts through the binding knots of reactionary work, karma, by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? So if you want to be free of karma, simply read every day and discuss and teach Bhagavad Gita. Your karma will be erased. And if you also chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare, it won't come back. It won't come back at all. So liberation means that one is free from the cycle of action and reaction, or karma. But this liberation automatically follows one who constantly remembers the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead. Now, this is important because if we read the Sri Damodarastakam, it says, Varam deva mokshavadim va nachanyam vineham varisad apiya. Idam teva purnata gopala balam sadame manasya virastam kimanmaya anya. It says, O Lord, you are able to give all kinds of benedictions. I do not pray to you for liberation, nor eternal life in Vaikuntha, nor any other boon or benediction. My only prayer is that your childhood pastimes may constantly appear in my mind. O Lord, I do not even know your feature of Paramatma. I simply wish that your childhood pastimes may ever be enacted in my heart. This is a devotee. This is a real devotee. They're not interested in any other nonsense. They're not even interested in liberation or in mukti. They simply want to have fixed in their mind the transcendental pastimes of Krishna. And some of the most delectable are his childhood pastimes. Don't forget, he danced the Rasa Lila when he was only 7 years old. Right? There's no question of lust in a 7-year-old boy. Right? Sometimes, like the Pushti Marg people, they only go up to the lifting of Govardhan Hill. They refuse to go any farther. They don't want to hear about Rasa Lila because they think it's corrupt. That, of course, is not true. How can a 7-year-old boy be lusty? Right? It's not possible. But, people make up all kinds of stories all the time. But okay, so this liberation, or mukti, is a byproduct of devotional service. Vasudeve de Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Gyaniyat Yasavairagam Gyanam Chaya Dahaitukam. That renunciation and knowledge, they follow. These two things follow devotional service. You don't have to cultivate them first and then devotional service. You engage in devotional service, these things will happen naturally. And liberation is a byproduct of devotional service. It is not, it's a function of devotional service. Devotional service is not a function of liberation. So attainment of the spiritual knowledge is not sufficient to ensure liberation. And you should understand this. Just because someone can quote verses, someone has memorized the entire Bhagavad Gita. I mean, there are kids that memorize whole chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. Do they understand what it means? No. There's kids that they memorize the whole, Hanuman Chalisa or the Lalita Sahasranam or even the Shri Vishnu Sahasranam, right? Does that mean they understand it? No. There are people that memorize whole chapters like Sundarakand of Tulsidas's, Ramayana. Does that mean they understand it? No. No. So, liberation is not a function, and devotional service is not a function of knowledge or renunciation. But knowledge and renunciation and liberation is a function of devotional service. So in the Sri Vaishnavas, they also have this concept of kainkarya and prapati. So kainkarya means basically sadhana bhakti, following all the rules and regulations. And prapati means sarvadharman parityaja, mam ekam saranam vacha, aham tvam sarva papebhyo moksisyami mahasucha. Krishna says, Arjuna, give up all your fabricated dharmas and just surrender unto me. If you surrender unto me, I promise you to free you from all previous karma and sin. Therefore, you have nothing to worry about, nothing to hesitate for, and nothing to doubt. So that's why Ramanujacharya included 2 verses from the Bhagavad Gita as essential for all Sri Vaishnavas, especially the Sarvadharma Parityaja. It's called the Charana mantra. And he also quoted a lot the verse, I'll think of it in a minute. It's I'll think of it in a minute. Okay, so here we see that pure bhakti is independent of karma and jnana, because it alone can not only endow one with liberation from conditional life, but also award one transcendental loving service of the Lord. You can't get that simply by studying. You can't get that simply by doing rituals. You cannot get that simply by renunciation. So it's independent of karma and jnana, and it can give you not only liberation from conditional life, but it can reward you transcendental loving service of the Lord. So, any person who has a little bit of a brain and must come to the point of constantly remembering the personality of Godhead by hearing about Him, by glorifying Him, by remembering Him, and by worshiping Him always, without cessation, without cessation, without cessation, no breaks. It's not that, oh, let's go to Montana and relax. There's nothing like that in Krishna consciousness. Did Prabhupada relax? No. Right up to the point where he was leaving his body, he was still translating. He was still hearing about Krishna consciousness and giving advice how to proceed. So, the Goswamis of Vrindavan, who were authorized by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to preach bhakti cult, rigidly followed this rule. What is the rule? Savai pumsa paro dharmo yato bhakti roksajay. Ahaituki pratyata yayat ma suprasidati. So, there's no break. There's no cessation. One never leaves their service. One never leaves their duties in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada told me once, in a letter, he said, now you have been promoted to more responsibility. You should take this as Lord Chaitanya's personal mercy on you. Right? And in other places he's written, whenever you increase your service, never decrease it. So therefore, you should increase incrementally, understanding that when you increase, you're never going to decrease. And one thing that we experienced during Prabhupada's presence was every time we would hear something about him, every time we would see him, we wanted to do more. We were not satisfied with what we were doing. We always wanted to do more. And the more we did, and the more Prabhupada appreciated it, we never felt that we made a mistake by increasing the service. We felt that I want to do more. I want to do everything I can to help Prabhupada spread this movement. That was in the minds of everyone. And it was very dynamic, very, very dynamic. And people were able to do miraculous things because they were completely surrendered to Prabhupada. So the Goswamis, they excavated the places of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, and they wrote tremendous amount of literature. Unbelievable. They were writing by hand on parchment paper. It's not real, not real paper like we have. It was like leaves, right? And it was all recorded and preserved until today. They didn't have internet. They didn't have typewriters yet. They wrote tremendous volumes of literature, so much so that they could fill up a huge cart with thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of these leaf pages with their writing on it in Sanskrit. And you can see some of it. There's a museum in Vrindavan, Vaishnava Museum. You can go and you can see some of it. Have you seen it? No, yeah, you should definitely go. It's in Lohi Bazaar. And you can see some of the original manuscripts. Okay. And they wrote things in such a way that all people in all classes, social classes, in terms of their castes and orders of life, they could make spiritual advancement. It wasn't just for the Brahminical caste. It was for all people. So now we come to verse 16. And verse 16 says, Verse 16 says, what does it say? This is a very important verse. Shushusoho Shadadana Vasudeva Katarachi San Mahat Sevaya Vipra Punyatirtani Sevanan. Very important verse. It says that, O twice-born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva, or Krishna. So this word, shushuso, one who is engaged in hearing, shraddhadanasya, with care and attention. That is what we learn if we come to class. Shushuso shraddhadanasya, hearing with care and attention, and obviously it implies faith. Vasudeva Kataruchi, and you develop this taste to hear the kata of Krishna. And it's made possible by rendering service to pure devotees. Punyatir Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipra. But it can only be done by persons who are punyatirtha, cleansed of all vice, meaning all bad habits, all sinful desires, and all sinful activities. And this is all done by service, by engaging in service, practical service, time-sensitive service. So this is an extremely important verse. And we all are in this world because we revolted against Krishna. Let's get that one point straight. No one is pure. We all revolted against Krishna. And we voluntarily did it. And we're still doing it today. You know, every time you wake up in the morning and say, oh, I'm so tired, I'm not going to go to temple today. I'll just skip Mangal Arati and then I'll pick up again tomorrow or next week. You know, that's revolt right there. Because it says, Savai Pumsa Paro Dharma Yato Bhaktira Hoksache Haituki. Haituki means without any material purpose. Haituki. Savai Pumsa Paro Dharma Yato Bhaktira Hoksache Haituki Pratihata Yayatma Supersidity. So this Yayatma Supersidity, what does that mean? That means there's no vacation. It means it's completely satisfying. But apratihata means unbroken, no vacation. Completely steady, not interested in anything else. So, if you learn the art of work, you can work in Microsoft, and still that work can be Krishna conscious, as opposed to another person who works in Microsoft, and that work is not Krishna conscious. How do you do that? Well, you're thinking, I'm going to use a certain percentage of my salary that I'm working hard to get for Krishna consciousness. And as you get older and your life situation changes, your kids are grown, they're married, they're off on their own, and you're an empty nester. You know what an empty nester is? Right. What's it mean? They get married. Yeah, you got a big house, you know, because you had, 3, 4 kids, and now there's nobody in the house anymore. So that's called an empty nester. Yeah. That means that you got a big nest, but there's not enough people for it anymore. You don't really need 3, 4 bathrooms anymore. You don't need a 3-car garage. You don't need 4,500 feet of a house, right? You could live in a 10 by 20 room, and that's enough, right? So as you downsize, especially when you become an empty nester, you downsize. Now you have more time for Krishna consciousness. You don't have to cut the grass. You don't have to take out all that trash. You don't have to wash. Your washing machine is not going on every day. And this thing and that. You don't have to go to this dance class and that language class and this tutoring. It's all done, right? Now you're an empty nester. So then you downsize. Downsize means there's plenty more time now for Krishna consciousness. Where before there was not much time, but you still made time. But now there's plenty more time. It's almost, you get to be my age, you're retired, it's all day long, every day. Nothing to interfere, right? It happens to everyone. Okay, so then, actually you become like a deva, a saintly person now. Even though you might still be married, it's okay. It doesn't matter. A husband and wife together become devas, right? And there's no more nonsense in the life. Okay, so this is because Shushusoho Shraddhatanasya. By this time you learn to listen with care, attention, and faith. And you're not interested in anything else. You don't need anything else to be happy. This is your happiness, right? So even if one is an asura, a demon, they can be rectified to God consciousness by the mercy of the Lord's pure devotees. And in any country, and we see every country in the world, even strange places like Mongolia, Burma, one devotee built a beautiful temple. And Burma is not even a Hindu country, it's a Buddhist country. But it used to be Hindu before. He went there was no temple there, and Burmese people have really bad habits, right? He built a beautiful temple, and he's made a lot of devotees. So even in places like Burma, Mongolia, we have devotees there, and temples. And China, and all these places where you don't, Siberia. Devotees have gone there, and people have become devotees. Africa, and so forth. So these pure devotees are like confidential associates of the Lord. And when they come to save society from the dangers of atheism and godlessness, they're known as powerful incarnations of the Lord. So Prabhupada is like that. He's an empowered devotee. Otherwise, how could he have done what he did? He did something miraculous, Herculean, unexpected. But he did it because he was empowered by his guru and Krishna to do it. And how did he get that empowerment? Because he completely surrendered to his guru and completely surrendered to the mission of Lord Chaitanya. So, in our scriptures, there's definite, specific information of who Krishna is, who God is. There's no other scripture like this that has such elaborate information about who God is and what he's doing and who his devotees are and what's going on in the spiritual world. No other literature has this. You can look for it, you won't find it. Right? It's not in the Quran, it's not in the Bible, it's not in the Torah, it's not in the Granth Sahib, it's not in this or that. It's only in Bhagavatam that you'll find specific and elaborate information about who God is, what's happening in the spiritual world, who are liberated souls, and so forth. So, therefore, we respect pure devotees in the same way that we respect Krishna. Because if you want to go back to Godhead, that respect is necessary. Just like today, we went to this funeral, right? Now, when I was speaking about Bhagavad Gita, what did the mother do? She got up, walked back, and gave the message to you, tell him to stop speaking. That's why I told you, unless people have some connection to the temple, it's not really worth going to this type of programs because they don't know what to do with it. They don't. I mean, we'll still go if they insist, but you're thinking, oh, let's go there and help them out in their moment of grief. But they're not grieving for the soul, they're grieving for the body, right? So they don't have a concept of, what is spiritual life. They just, even though they're born in India, even though they hire priests to do different pujas, right? But they have no idea of spiritual life. No idea at all. Even though they're dressed like that, they have saris on, dhotis on, absolutely no idea of spiritual life. And no taste for hearing. They have some taste for ritual. What happens when there's a ritual? They're talking to each other. They're not sitting in the ritual seriously. And you saw what was happening. They were all talking, and the priest was sitting there, blah, 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 chanting the mantras, right? So you see, it's sad. It's very sad. There's no taste at all for hearing. The lady goes back and says, give him a message, tell him to stop. I predicted that, right? Without even knowing who they were, I knew that was good, because I've seen it happen before. Okay, so the servants of God, they urge people to become devotees of the Lord. They never tolerate being called God. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was God himself, according to the indication of revealed scriptures, but he played the part of a devotee. People who knew him to be God addressed him as God, but he used to block his ears with his hands and chant the name of Lord Vishnu. He strongly protested against being called God, although undoubtedly he was God himself. The Lord behaves so to warn us against unscrupulous men who take pleasure in being addressed as God. So the real devotees, they come to propagate God consciousness. Now, one time I was thinking to myself, what is the difference between Prabhupada and, let's say, Muktananda or Ma Amritamayi or Ramana Maharshi or Aurobindo or this one or that one? So what's the difference? So I thought about it for about a month. And suddenly it came to me. Every one of those persons names their movement after themselves. Right? This is Muktananda's program. This is Shivananda's movement. This is Ramakrishna's movement. Right? Prabhupada named the movement Hare Krishna movement. He didn't say this is Bhaktivedanta Swami's movement. In fact, most people don't even know Bhaktivedanta Swami. They know Hare Krishnas. You see? That was the difference that I noticed. I thought about it long, just like Nityananda's, right? It doesn't say what, I don't know what their name is officially, but you just say, oh, Nityananda's, Or you say Satguru. What's his movement? Who knows what the movement is? But it's Satguru. But you never say, oh, Bhaktivedanta Swami. You say, Hare Krishnas. You say, he came to propagate knowledge of Krishna, not of himself. Whereas the others, they want to be glorified. And they want their name on everything. They want their name to prevail. And they don't, hardly do they talk about Krishna. Hardly. And if it is something about Krishna, it's half joking and half mythology. It's not real serious. So the eagerness to hear about God is the first qualification of a devotee eligible to enter the kingdom of God. This eagerness to hear, I want to hear more. I want to come to class. I don't want to miss anything. It's too exciting. This is what feeds my heart. This is food for the soul, or soul food. Soul food in the black community is eating spare ribs with barbecue sauce. That's soul food. But Hare Krishna soul food is tasting the nectar of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. That's our soul food. And that's nutrition for the soul. We're all concerned about nutrition for the body, but we should feed the soul also every day. Right? So then the next verse now gets really serious. Shinvata swakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana hirdiyantaksto bhadrani vidunoti srihitsatam. Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, or super soul, in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee. Notice he says truthful devotee. This is extremely important. One should never tell lies. Very important. Especially if one is a devotee, they should never tell lies. They should always be truthful. However, one time Prabhupada and his sannyasi devotee Brahmananda Maharaj were coming into Mumbai, and they had a tape recorder. So when they came in, they opened up the luggage. This was before where, tape recorders, and there was no cell phones, but tape recorder was like, no, you can't bring it into the country because if you do, there's tax on it. So they stopped Brahmananda and they opened up his suitcase, and he had a tape recorder. And they said, where did you get this from? He said, oh, I got it in New York. Said, how much does it cost? So he gave the price of a new tape recorder. It was a used tape recorder. And they forced him to pay duty on a new tape recorder, which is more than the price of the at that time, more than the price of the tape recorder. So later on, Prabhupada was speaking in the temple to the devotees. He didn't have to tell him it was a new tape recorder. It wasn't a new tape recorder, right? It was a used one. He said he should have told him it's a used, because Prabhupada was concerned they had to pay more than the price of a new tape recorder for that used tape recorder, because that was the tax, So. But Brahmananda, he got shaken up. And he said, yes, it's new, So anyway, we should always tell the truth. So it says, Krishna is in everyone's heart, and he's the benefactor of the truthful devotee. And because of that, he cleanses the desire for material enjoyment. Now, this is the most important benediction we could ever get. Clean the desire for material enjoyment, because that's what causes trouble in life. And I've read this before, but I'll read it again. It's in the 5th chapter where Prabhupada says that, I think it's the 18th verse. No, it's not the 18th verse. Well, anyway, the more one is addicted to sense pleasures, the more one suffers. Yeah, it's 22nd verse, 5th chapter. The last line of that purport says, the more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more he or she is entrapped by material miseries. Now, if you're a devotee and you do some sinful things or engage in sense gratification, what Krishna will do for you, it's his special mercy. He'll give you the reaction almost immediately. 1 or 2 days or 1 week later. Jai Shri Radha Nilamadhava ki jai. Now, if you're not a devotee, you could get the reaction in the next life where you can't see the cause and effect. But if it happens a few days later or a week later, you say, oh, I knew it was going to happen. I should not have done that. I know it was wrong, and I did it anyway, and look what happened. I broke my finger, or I got another ticket, or I had an accident, or something's happened. Something happened. I burned myself. And then you say, you see the correlation that, last week I did some nonsense, and right away Krishna gave me the reaction. But that's his mercy. We should be happy. Because if he doesn't like you, because if you're a real nonsense, you won't get the reaction for the next life, or maybe 2 or 3 lifetimes later. It's impossible for you to see the cause and effect, why it's happening to you. So I didn't do anything wrong. Why did this happen? Oh, obviously you did something wrong. Otherwise it wouldn't be happening. But you can't remember. But the devotee, he can see, yes, this happened because last week I did this nonsense. And I got to get more serious. So he cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. So again, the emphasis here is on hearing and repeating, hearing and glorifying, hearing and chanting. The emphasis. If you develop this taste for hearing on a regular basis. See, now hearing is not like, while you're cooking, you have Amala Bhakta on the, reading, or you have class by your Gurudev, That's not hearing. That's entertainment. See? Entertainment is not hearing. Hearing is perfect quiet, and you're focused, 100%. That's hearing. Just running the tape recorder, yeah, you're hearing something, but what do you remember from that? Virtually nothing. Virtually nothing. If you remember one thing, you're lucky. Huh? Yeah. So, and Prabhupada says, the messages of Krishna, the personality of Godhead, are non-different from him. Whenever, therefore, offenseless hearing, offenseless hearing. What are one of the offenses? Inattentive, being inattentive is an offense against the holy name. Inattentive while chanting, or inattentive while hearing a lecture, a bona fide lecture. One time I was in Mayapur and we were hearing a lecture by one sannyasi, and he was explaining, how he went from this place to that place, and he ate this, and he took rest here, and then he had a massage, or he went to this Ayurvedic clinic. And someone whispered to me, "This is not a class. This is nonsense." So, well, in a sense, you could say it is, because he's not really, is it in the Shastra what he's saying? He's just talking about his schedule and a vacation that he had, and, in sitting on the Vyasa-san. So, you sit on the Vyasa-san is a very serious thing. Otherwise, you don't have a right to sit here. It should only be talking about Krishna. Not talking about, I ate this, and then I went there, and I went to this Ayurvedic clinic, and I got this massage. And that's not a class. Right? So, and you'll never hear Prabhupada talking like that. All the lectures he's given. There's over 3,000 lectures Prabhupada has given that are taped. And he gave more than that, but there's over 3,000 that are available on tape. And maybe there's a supplement now also. They're all very serious lectures. He never deviates into something that's mundane. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Siksastakam declares clearly that the holy name of Krishna has all the potencies of the Lord. In other words, you're directly associating with Krishna when you chant his holy name. And it has all the potency of Krishna. Krishna can purify even the worst person. Look what he did to Kubja. Kubja was a hunchback, and she was very lusty. And when Lord Krishna straightened out her back and she became beautiful, she immediately manifested strong lust for the Lord. But the Lord took mercy on her and hugged her, and it relieved her completely of the lust. And she became a pure devotee. So, Krishna has that power. He can even purify a lusty person just by touching them. He doesn't even have to touch them, just by seeing him. See? So the holy name of Krishna has the same power as Krishna. It's not lesser. But we have to realize that. And you realize that by hearing the glories of the holy name, hearing glories of Krishna. And for chanting Hare Krishna, there's no rigid fixed time. And anyone can chant the holy name with attention and reverence at his convenience. So one time someone asked Prabhupada a question. He said, Prabhupada, can we chant Hare Krishna in the toilet? And Prabhupada said, yes, why not? You can chant anytime, anywhere. And Krishna is so kind that he can be present before us personally in the form of transcendental sound, but unfortunately we have no taste for hearing and glorifying the Lord's name and activities. So, just like if you turn the radio on, right, you can hear someone's sound from far away. If you turn the television on, you not only hear the sound, you see them. You see them talking, blah, 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 moving their lips, and they're moving around. And it's like they're in your room, right? You're in your mind also, right? Because you can see them. Well, the name of Krishna and Krishna are non-different. If we chant purely, we will see Krishna. Prabhupada says that. So this taste for hearing and chanting, how do we develop it? It is done through the medium of service to the pure devotees, or pure devotee of the Lord. And the Lord is, Prabhupada says, reciprocally respondent to his devotees. In other words, ye tamam papadyante tamstadaiva bhajamyaham mamavart manavartante manusya partha sarvasa. As we surrender to Krishna, proportionately he reveals himself to us. So if you surrender completely, then you'll always see Krishna. And if you don't surrender, you'll see nothing. You'll see stone, marble, idols. But if you surrender 1%, you begin to see something. And Krishna is more anxious to take us back to Godhead than we are. Can you imagine that? He's more anxious than we are that we come back to Godhead. And I had this one friend, a very wealthy man here in Seattle. One day we were talking about Krishna consciousness, and he said, Prabhu, I want to always be born again in Medina. I don't want to go back to spiritual. I want to be born in Medina. You know where Medina is? Right? It's the richest neighborhood in the whole Seattle area. That's where Bill Gates lives. And this man was living there. One day, he was like adamant. I want to always be born in Medina. I don't want to go back to God. You know. So you're always talking about Vaikuntha this and Goloka. I don't care about it. I want Medina. You see how crazy people become? And he was a nice man. And he was a supporter of the temple. But he didn't have the capacity to hear. He told good jokes, though. He told a very funny joke. He was a jokester, you know, but not serious. See, not serious. That's the problem. So Krishna is more anxious to take us back to Godhead than we are. Most of us don't really desire to go back to Godhead. There was an example, a real example of this Hindu gentleman. He said, I'm not interested in Vaikuntha. I want Medina. Right? So very few people actually want to go back to Godhead. But if you engage in Krishna consciousness and become serious about hearing, then the Lord will make it easy to go back to Godhead. Make it easy. But one has to be cleared of all sins. You cannot go back to Godhead if there's sins or sinful desires. And that's not an easy thing. The material sins are products of our desires to dominate the material nature and enjoy. It's very difficult to get rid of these desires. As Prabhupada says it. It's very difficult to get rid of these desires. And sense gratification and wealth are difficult problems for the devotees making progress on the path back to Godhead. Sense gratification and wealth. And Prabhupada says many great devotees in the devotional line fell victim to these allurements, and thus they left the path of liberation. But when one is helped by the Lord himself, the whole process becomes as easy as anything by the divine grace of the Lord. Yeah, Daivihi esa gunamai, mama maya duradya, mam evaye papadyante, mayam etam tarantite. He says, Daivihi esa gunamai, mama maya durat mama. Durat, see, there's dur, like Durga. See, whenever you see that prefix, dur, in Sanskrit, it means something very bad. And it's impossible to overcome Krishna's gunamai, his material energy. We're trying, everyone's trying, building skyscrapers and building tunnels and building rocket ships to go to the moon. They never landed on the moon, but they went somewhere, and they came back right away. Or they didn't go very far. I mean, basically, they haven't gone farther than 400 miles into space. That's where the space station is. Only 400 miles. It's like from here to Eugene, Oregon. Right? That's the extent to which Russia, the United States, the Chinese have explored space. And they've gone even less into the crust of the earth. They haven't gone more than 4 or 5 miles into the crust of the earth. Can you imagine that? In other words, they've gone farther into space than they've gone into the crust of the earth. And they don't even know that there are civilizations underground. There are civilizations right now under the crust of the earth. How do we know? Well, the sons of Sagar went under the ground and they saw Kapila Muni deep under the ground. They saw Kapila Muni, and then they burned themselves because of their enviousness of Kapila Muni. And then later on, that's why Bhagirata brought the Ganges down to purify their ashes so that they could have a better birth in their next life. That's why he brought it down. So there's an underworld that's spoken about. Right? There's whole civilizations under the ocean also. Varuna, his whole kingdom is in the deepest part of the ocean. So there's many. They haven't even excavated the earth. They haven't even studied the earth properly. And they haven't gone farther than 400 miles into space. But yet they spent billions and billions and billions of dollars. The whole thing is a hoax. And they're saying, we can't live on the earth. We only have 12 more years. And then the whole thing is going to end. It's all Trump's fault because, he's not signing the agreement, the Paris Agreement on global warming. A bunch of nonsense. Not one strain of truth in that whole statement and theory. Right. So, here, if one is engaged in hearing the glories of the Lord, gradually one realizes his or her real position. By the grace of God, such a devotee gets sufficient strength to defend himself from the state of disturbances, and gradually all disturbing elements are eliminated from his mind, his or her mind. We all get disturbed in this life, right? And it takes our mind off of chanting. It takes our mind off of Krishna consciousness, the disturbance. But a real devotee is never disturbed. He says, this is all Krishna's mercy. It couldn't happen unless Krishna wanted it to happen. Therefore, he has some plan. And I will patiently continue my service and wait and see what his plan is. Okay. So, just like Sabari, when she became a disciple of her guru, he said, well, now I'm going to leave with my disciple. You stay here alone. And in the future, at some time, Lord Ramachandra will come with Lakshman, and you give them fruits and roots, and then you tell them where they can find Sugriva. She stayed there a very long time by herself. Very, very long time. I don't know exactly how many years, but it was a very long time. Strictly followed the Guru. When Rama and Lakshman came, she gave them fruits and roots and clean water. And later on she told them where they could find Sugriva. And then she asked permission to leave. And she built a fire. And looking at them, she entered into the fire. And then in the smoke, she manifested a heavenly body, took permission from them to leave, and then rose to the heavenly planets with that smoke. See, the fire of a genuine fire sacrifice is sacred. The smoke is sacred. Sometimes we used to make these real smoky fire sacrifices in people's homes, and they would say, "Well, we're choking, let's open the window." I said, "No, don't open the window. You might go up to Swarga." But that's what happened to Sabri. She went up to the heavenly planets with that smoke. Okay, so now the next verse says, Nasta presu abhadresu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utamasloke bhaktir bhavati naistaki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So why does it say almost completely destroyed? Because we have free will. So at any time we could decide, I'm not going to chant today. I'm not going to follow the regulative principles. That's why it says almost destroyed to know. Because we could still make that decision to not follow. Right? But if by engaging in service, if we develop up to the stage of bhava and prema, then especially prema, then we will not fall down at all. But you can fall down even from bhava. Bharat Maharaj fell down from the state of bhava, ecstatic state of Krishna consciousness. He fell down. That's why it says almost to know. It's only when you attain real prema that it's not possible to fall down. So Prabhupada said, this is the remedy. This verse is the remedy for eliminating all inauspicious things within the heart, which are considered to be obstacles in the path of self-realization. The remedy is the association of Bhagavatas, because that's what this says. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. So there's two Bhagavatas. There's the book Bhagavata and the person Bhagavata. So by serving either one or both, that's the remedy to all problems of disturbance of the mind and getting rid of all obstacles and all inauspicious things in one's life. There are two types of Bhagavatas, the book Bhagavata and the devotee Bhagavata. But the Bhagavatas are competent remedies, and both of them, or either of them, can be good enough to eliminate the obstacles in one's life. What's the biggest obstacle? Family is the biggest obstacle. Family, nation, state, ethnicity, nationality, all these things are extensions of the body. The swajanam, my people. Right? I'm ready to die for my people, my country. I'll kiss the earth of my country. When I die, I want my body taken back and buried in the land of my ancestors. There's all a bunch of nonsense. It sounds good. It sounds good, it sounds noble, but actually it's not. Right? And when you say my family, one time there was a guru and this young man, he's like 16, young boy, he was seeing Guru all the time, and his family became very upset. And they told him, you cannot see your Guru anymore. We want you to take over the family business. You're going to get married. This thing, that thing. This Guru is just wasting your time. You're not going to be a serious person. So when he told his Guru that, his Guru said, look, he said, let's just do a little experiment. He said, experiment? What experiment? He said, you take me to see your parents and your whole family. And while we're talking, you fall on the ground, fall on the floor, and pretend you're dead. He said, "What for?" He said, "You'll see, but you have to, hold your breath and sort of turn blue a little bit, He said, okay. He said, how long do I have to hold my breath? I said, no, you don't have to hold it completely, but try not to show that you're breathing. So wear a big coat or something. He said, okay. So the family didn't want to see the Guru, but the boy insisted. So they said, okay, let's see. So the boy and the Guru go, and they're sitting down. They're sitting on the sofas in the living room, and they're all there. The father, the mother, the sisters, the brother, and they're all there. So they're talking something, and all of a sudden the boy says, oh, everyone like shocked, and he falls on the ground and shakes a little bit, and they're shocked. And all of a sudden the Guru says, please, he said, I have a remedy for him. They said, is he dead? And the Guru, touches him a little bit. Oh yeah, he's dead. They're shocked. The mother starts crying. The sister is shocked. The brother is a little bit happy because he didn't like his brother. The father is shocked. So at that point, the Guru says, he had a glass of water. He said, he put it in front of the father. He said, I'm going to say a mantra. And if you drink this water after I say the mantra, you will die, your son will come back alive. He said, what? He said, I guarantee you. And he looked at the water. He said, no, I can't die right now. I mean, who's going to take care of the rest of the family? I mean, he's dead, but there's still my other kids and my wife. Who's going to take care of and my business? No, I can't die. He said, okay. Then he pushed the glass in front of the mother. He said, you drink this, your son will come back alive. He started crying, well, who's going to cook for my husband? Who's going to cook for him? No, I can't. I said, okay, I understand. So he put it in front of the boy, and the boy said, are you kidding? And I said, okay. So then he put it in front of the sister and said, but I'm too young. I have my whole life in front of me. I'm going to go to Yale, and I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to die. No, I can't. And I said, that's all right. And then the boy, he got over and said, Gurudev, please stop. I understand now. And they walked out. Well, it sounds like a funny story, but there are some families, there might be some families, the father or the mother are willing to sacrifice their life for their child. It's not that every family is not the same. But the idea is that even if they did that, it's to more in the idea of continuing the family name rather than a spiritual purpose, right? So this verse is saying that this is the remedy of all inauspicious things. That is serving pure devotees or the book or the person Bhagavat. And the person Bhagavat is as good as the book Bhagavat. So the devotee Bhagavat is a direct representative of Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. So by pleasing the devotee Bhagavata, one can receive the benefit of the book Bhagavata. Human reason fails to understand how by serving the devotee Bhagavata or the book Bhagavata, one gets gradual promotion on the path of devotion. That's a fact. They say, oh, you're serving your guru, you're not going to, you become some sannyasi and you waste the rest of your life, and people don't think it's serious. They don't understand the value of, whereas previously, if a father had 5 sons, one son he would give to the guru. He said, let him become a saint. One son takes over the business, one son this, one son that. But nowadays, they don't want any son to become a sadhu. They want them all to take over the business or go to the United States and become rich. So this is explained by Narada Muni, by his life. He was the son of a very poor woman. He had no education, but by serving pure devotees for 4 months, he became Narada Muni in his next life, the greatest saint that's ever lived. He's still alive. Right? And that was simply by taking their prasadam, offering them service, and listening to their discourses. So Prabhupada says, these are the miraculous effects of the association of Bhagavatas. And to understand these effects practically, it should be noted that by such sincere association of the Bhagavatas, one is sure to receive transcendental knowledge very easily, with the result that he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. The more progress is made in devotional service under the guidance of the Bhagavatas, the more one becomes fixed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The messages of the book Bhagavata, therefore, have to be received from the devotee Bhagavata, and the combination of these two Bhagavatas will help the neophyte devotee make progress on and on. And then 19, we'll finish up in a few minutes now. Tadarajas tamo bhavo kamalobadayasche chetayatara navitam stitvam sattve prasidati. As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, irrevocable means no vacation, 24 hours a day. The effects of nature's modes of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness, and he or she becomes completely happy. So this lust, desire, hankering, it's all due to rajas and tamas, passion and ignorance. They can be completely eradicated. They're due to this rajas and tamas modes of material nature. And then one can become happy. They don't have this heavy baggage of all these material desires and frustration. You can't have all those desires, and you get frustrated, and there's deception and so many things. No, one is free of all that. So Prabhupada says the living being in his normal conditional position is fully satisfied in spiritual bliss. This state of existence is called Brahmabhuta or Atmananda, or the state of self-satisfaction. This self-satisfaction is not like the satisfaction of the inactive fool. Yeah, the lazy bum, he said, I'm so happy. I get money from the government, I don't have to work, and I smoke marijuana, and I can go and do nonsense, and I'm really happy. He's not happy. He's a lazy bum. Life is going past him. He's not going to accomplish anything. So the inactive fool is in a state of foolish ignorance, whereas the self-satisfied Atmanandi, the person who's feeling nectar or bliss of his soul and its relationship to Krishna, is transcendental to the material state of existence. This stage of perfection is attained as soon as one is fixed in irrevocable devotional service. Devotional service is not inactivity, but the unalloyed activity of the soul. The soul's activity becomes adulterated in contact with matter, and as such, the diseased activities are expressed in the form of lust, desire, hankering, inactivity, foolishness, and sleep. Yeah, you want to get your sleep comfort bed, and get your adjustment, is it 75 or is it 85 or is it 55, and it's always cool. It never gets hot, the sheets are always cool. It only costs $5,000, and you'll sleep much better and much longer, right? Yeah. And then you'll be much more lusty, many more desires and foolishness and so forth. So the sleep comfort bed is comfortable for the lazy people, but not for the devotee. Devotee doesn't even want to sleep. It's too much excitement engaging in devotional service and spreading this movement. The effect of devotional service becomes manifest by complete elimination of these effects of passion and ignorance, lust, anger, greed, so forth. The devotee is fixed at once in the mode of goodness, and he makes further progress to the position of Vasudeva, or the state of unmixed sattva or Suddhasattva. Only in the Suddhasattva state can one always see Krishna face to face by dint of pure affection for the Lord. So this is our destiny, seeing Krishna face to face all the time. And because of our affection for the Lord, he manifests to us. A devotee is always in the mode of unalloyed goodness, So one name for unalloyed goodness is Vasudeva. Not Vasudeva, but Vasudeva. Right? Vasudeva has different meanings. Right? It refers to Krishna's father. It also refers to the state of Suddha-sattva, transcendental goodness. But the non-devotee, however educated he may be, is always harmful. Is always making mistakes, hurting people, hurting himself. A devotee is neither foolish nor passionate. The harmful, foolish, and passionate cannot be devotees of the Lord. However, they may advertise themselves as devotees by outward dress. So, clothes don't make the man. Actions and words, actions and bona fide speech are indications of a genuine devotee, not the cloth or the watch. It used to be, if you have a gold Rolex watch and a gold chain, you're a real Mahatma. No, that's not true. You know, and you're suntanned. The Goswamis didn't have gold Rolexes and they didn't have gold chains. You know, and they were always engaged in devotional service, sleeping under a different tree every night with just one cloth. Right. So next verse, Evam prasana manaso bhagavat bhakti yogataha bhagavat tattva vijnana mukta sangasya jayate. Thus established in the mode of goodness, unalloyed goodness, the man or woman whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation. And the next verse says, Vidyate hridaya grantis chidyante sarva samsaya chidyante tashikarmani drista evatmanishvare. That thus the knot in the heart is pierced and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive actions is terminated when one sees the self as master. So whenever self is spelled with a small s, that means because you're always engaged in devotional service, you don't have any time for nonsense. That means you're the master. You mastered your mind and senses by engaging them always in Krishna's service, like Harivilas Maharaj. Then you are a master. Otherwise, you're slave to lust, greed, anger, and so forth. So that then you attain scientific knowledge of Krishna. And at the same time, you see yourself as the eternal servant of the Lord. And that's the last verse that we were studying. And we'll go over those last two verses a little more next time, and then continue. So you see, there's a lot of information in this first canto, second chapter. If you understand the first canto, second chapter, the whole process of Krishna consciousness is there, summarized as the 8 steps. Shraddha, Sadhusanga, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti, Nishta, Ruchi, Anasaktis, Prema. That's what this whole chapter is about. So thank you very much. Any questions? Yes.
Prabhu, verse 16, why does it say, oh, twice born saviors?
Yeah, because your first birth is seminal birth from mother and father. Second birth is initiation, especially Upanayanam. I mean, whether it's Harinam or Upanayanam, that's your second birth. You're born into spiritual life by the spiritual master. So you're called twice born. Most people are only once born in life, but devotees are twice born. Twice born, let me tell you what it means. Let's say, well, we saw an example of it today. As soon as we started talking about spiritual things, they couldn't take more than maybe 5 to 7 minutes of it. And then that was it. They wanted it to stop, right? That means they're all once-born persons. They all have seminal birth. They haven't had spiritual birth. Spiritual birth means you didn't speak enough. Keep speaking more. We want to hear more, right? As long as you speak bona fide things, shastrically verified, we want to hear more. Whereas once-born people, I got a headache, it's talking about that, it's Krishna this and Krishna that. They're always saying Krishna. I don't want to hear any more of this Krishna. Why don't they talk a little bit about Mata or this, Subramanya or something, why always this Krishna, So you see, they have no taste for it because they're just seminal birth. They haven't had a spiritual birth, which is second birth. Okay, Haribol, thank you. Yes?
Not in one of the verses you said that caring with the care, attention and the devotion.
Yeah.
So attention and devotion.
Attention and,
Care.
yeah, you care.
What does the care mean? Caring with the care. What is the care word?
Care is like this. When you care for something, you handle it very carefully, right? Let's say someone gives you, $10 $100 bills. So, you accept the $100, but then you carefully put it in your pocket. You know which pocket it's in, right? And every once in a while you go like this to make sure it's still there, right? Right? So you're very careful with it. So the spiritual knowledge, you would handle it with care, meaning it's not an ordinary thing. Like, someone hands you a dime, right? You say, okay, yeah, I'll put it in your pocket, but, who cares? But they hand you $1,000, you're very careful. And every once in a while, you'll go like this just to make sure that, you can feel it's still there. So the spiritual knowledge, you're going to be very, very caring of it. You want to cultivate it. That's part of it, right? The offenses against the holy name, offenses against the holy Dham, and offenses against devotees. Yes, you have to be very careful. Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Haribol, Haribol. So the assignment you received last week, it's for next week. Right? You received an assignment that we're supposed to do for today? No? Okay, well, he'll send it out then. Budget Creeper will send it out.